In the heavens high, where the light does run, stand 4 archangels, their powers as one. Sariel of tornado, fierce winds at his call. Tamriel of the ocean, where the deep waters fall. Ludosil of flash, swift as the night's end. And Mal of sun, with light to defend. Together they reign, a radiant band, creating domains with a wave of their hand. The graces combined, a force to behold. In battles of light, their stories are told. These mighty 4, with power so grand, guardians eternal of the celestial land. Or are they in the ancient realm where light and darkness waged eternal war? The 4 archangels stood as the ultimate defenders of the heavens. Among them was Mal, the archangel of sun, whose brilliance could outshine the stars. His strength was a beacon of hope for the goddess clan, and his presence was a constant thorn in the side of the demon clan. But even in a world of divine beings, treachery lurked in the shadows. Galther, a puppet master whose magic could bend reality itself, wove a plan to shatter the celestial harmony. With his enchanting powers, Galther planted a seed of deceit in the minds of gods and mortals alike. One fateful day, as the skies darkened with the impending clash, Mal found himself face to face with Meliodas, the demon prince. The battlefield trembled under the weight of their power. Mal, Meliodas called out, his voice carrying a mix of respect and determination, "This war needs to end, but it won't be in your favor." Mal's eyes blazed with the intensity of the sun. "Meliodas, you know nothing of balance. The light will always prevail over darkness." Their weapons clashed, sparks flying as their powers collided. Mal summoned the searing light of the sun, bathing the battlefield in its brilliance. Meliodas countered with a torrent of darkness, the air thick with the raw energy of their clash. "You think your light can burn away everything?" Meliodas grunted, pushing against Mal's overwhelming power. "But darkness has a way of consuming even the brightest flames." Mal roared, unleashing a blinding wave of energy. "Your darkness will never overshadow the sun." Despite Mal's immense power, Meliodas fought with the ferocity of a cornered beast. Their battle raged on, devastating the landscape, until finally, with a swift and calculated strike, Meliodas pierced through Mal's defenses. Mal staggered, his radiant form dimming as he fell to his knees. "You cannot extinguish the light," he whispered, his voice fading like the setting sun. Meliodas stood over him, his expression a mix of sorrow and resolve. "I take no joy in this, Mal. This war has taken too much from us all." With a final, echoing cry, Mal's light flickered out, and the battlefield was left in eerie silence. Meanwhile, in the shadows, Galther's plan was unfolding. He conjured an illusion so convincing that it rewrote the annals of history. In this fabricated reality, it was not Meliodas who defeated Mal, but Esterossa, a powerful demon. The world now believed Esterossa had slain Mal in a brutal confrontation, tipping the scales of the celestial war. The goddess clan, driven by despair and fear, sought a way to end the conflict once and for all. Galther whispered another suggestion into their hearts, a solution steeped in sacrifice. The coffin of eternal darkness, a forbidden relic, could seal away the demon clan, but the price was steep. To wield its power, the goddesses would have to forsake their physical forms, sacrificing their earthly presence to ensure the demon's imprisonment. Desperate to protect their realm and avenge their fallen comrade, the goddesses agreed. In a solemn ceremony, they chanted the incantations, channeling the divine essence into the coffin. "May our sacrifice bring peace to this world," one of the goddesses whispered, her voice filled with both sorrow and hope. As the ritual reached its peak, their bodies dissolved into pure light, leaving only their spiritual forms to wander the ethereal plane. The coffin of eternal darkness, now brimming with divine power, locked the demon clan in an unbreakable prison. The heavens wept for the loss of their radiant defenders, and the world entered an uneasy peace. Yet, beneath the surface of this victory lay the seeds of uncertainty. Galther's manipulation had left scars on the fabric of reality, and the truth of Mal's fate remained hidden in the shadows of the past. As the celestial realms mourned and the demons languished in their confinement, the echoes of this betrayal would one day resurface, altering the course of destiny once more. Subaru's breath caught, and he realized, too late, the mistake he had made. Panic gripped him as Felt's sharp eyes caught his hesitation, and the edges of her lips curled into a smug, knowing grin. "So, the woman who hired me didn't want to say anything either," she began, her voice dripping with amusement. "And it looks like you're just as bad." Subaru scrambled for a response, trying to plaster on a casual air, but his silence betrayed him. Felt leaned in, her crimson eyes gleaming with cat-like cruelty as she pressed her advantage. "What is this insignia, anyway? It's worth more than it looks, right? That's why you're so desperate to get it. But let me guess, It's worth more than 20 holy gold coins, isn't it? She smirked. You're just another shady client trying to outbid the last. Her words struck like daggers. Subaru fought to keep his composure, his mind racing for a way out. Felt, just take the deal. 20 holy gold coins, it's the best you're going to get. Trust me, even the person who hired you can't offer more. Felt's eyes narrowed. And why do you know that? Subaru froze. His slip-up had exposed him. He stammered, but it was too late. Her suspicion deepened. You know her, don't you? Felt accused, her voice sharp and cutting. You're not just some clueless buyer. Spill it. Subaru hesitated, the weight of return by death looming over him like a phantom. He couldn't explain, couldn't tell her the truth. His silence only fueled her frustration. You're pathetic, she spat, crossing her arms. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me why you want the insignia. Give me the truth, or this deal is over. He met her gaze, a flicker of desperation in his eyes. Then, he bowed his head, his voice steady but soft. I want to return it. That's all. It belongs to someone who saved my life. I owe her that much. Felt's lips parted, her eyes widening slightly at the unexpected sincerity in his words. But just as quickly, her expression hardened again. That's absurd. If it's hers, why not just bring a guard to arrest me? Why pay so much for a stolen trinket? Subaru clenched his fists. Because she doesn't want guards involved. She's complicated. Silence hung heavy in the air. Rom, who had been watching quietly, finally spoke. Felt, I don't think the kid's lying. Don't be stupid, old man, she snapped. You can't seriously believe him. Their argument was cut short by a knock at the door. Rom's expression darkened as he turned to Felt. Your client. Maybe, Felt said, hesitating. But it's too early. As she approached the door, Subaru's stomach twisted. A terrible realization struck him. He bolted upright, shouting, Don't open it. We'll be killed. The door creaked open, and in walked a silver-haired girl with an icy expression. Subaru's heart sank. Not Sattler. The icicles crisscrossed mercilessly, filling the room with a white mist and covering the black-cloaked figure in freezing wind. The speed of these icicles was far beyond what he'd seen in the alley. As far as Subaru knew, this had transcended the major league and had reached a level of speed you only saw in video games. Their sharp tips would easily pierce through the human body and come out red with fresh blood. There were about 20 of them. If they landed, it'd mean certain death. But is she finished? Right, there's a bad flag. Even though he had remained silent for so long, the baldy just had to go and say something at the worst possible time. And as if to answer Subaru's shout, I was prepared, you see. I quite dislike its weight, but it was the right decision to wear it. Cutting through the white smoke, Elsa dashed forward with her black hair dancing behind her. As she brandished her cookery knife and nimbly advanced, there was no sign of injury on her body. She had cast aside her cloak and was now only wearing the form-fitting black clothes she wore underneath it, but there was no change besides this. Don't tell me it's the sort of thing where you take off weighted clothing and become faster. That would be pretty interesting, but the reality is simpler. My cloak had a spell woven into it that could negate magic just once. Seems it allowed me to keep my life. Elsa politely answered Subaru's query, and then swung her blade forward from a low stance. Standing in her path was not Sattler, who had just unleashed that huge attack. The blade's path was true, intended to plunge the heavy tip into her chest. Subaru was about to scream, but before that could happen, you do well not to underestimate a user of the spirit arts. We're rather frightening when you make enemies of us. A multi-layered shield of ice easily stopped Elsa's blade. Not Sattler placed her hands together before her chest. She had probably formed that shield using her hands. With her attack blocked, Elsa immediately backflipped away. A number of slightly smaller icicles were rapidly fired in pursuit and pierced the ground. This was Puck's attack. He floated by Not Sattler's silver hair as he waved his arms like he was conducting an orchestra. They're splitting the roles of offense and defense. It's really 2-on-1. That's what makes spirit uses dangerous. One handles offense while the other handles defense. Depending on the situation, you'll have one stall with simple magic while the other prepares a powerful move. They can do that sort of thing. On the battlefield, it is commonly said that, if you encounter a spirit user, you should drop your weapon and wallet and run. As Subaru looked on in admiration, Rom, who was next to him, muttered gravely as he tightened his grip on his club. Subaru nodded at his words. Indeed, in a one-on-one battle their advantage was absolute. Overcoming it would be no easy feat. By the way, what are you planning to do, old man? I'll look for an opening to help the elf girl. She seems more reasonable than the other one. Wait. Don't try it. You'd only be a burden. You'll just have your right arm and throat ripped apart if you go, so stay right there. Don't be that specific. It almost feels like that actually happened. He had actually seen this happen twice. As a result, his statement felt genuine. Rom seemed rather displeased as he clutched his arm and neck as if he felt himself getting cut down in another dimension. Even as they had this exchange, the battle continued. Although Subaru had warned Rom with his frivolous talk, in truth there were no openings to interfere in the battle. Countless lumps of ice formed one after another and were blasted all over the room. Their sizes varied. The larger ones were about the size of a head, and the smaller ones were roughly fist-sized. They were all fired with the speed of a full power pitch, and it was clear just how dangerous they were. However, even as she was surrounded by all of this ice, Elsa's movements now that she had lost her magic negating cloak had transcended the realm of common sense. She would twist her body, lower herself to the ground as if crawling, and occasionally even defy gravity by running the walls. If she judged that even this wouldn't suffice, she would strike the ice with her blade, shattering the white crystals. She matched quantity with overwhelming quality. Her skill was exceptional. You handle yourself well for a girl. Even Puck had to admire her combat sense that could only be described as godlike. His mutter caused Elsa to smile broadly even in the midst of that chaotic battle. Oh my, it's been quite a while since I was last regarded as a simple girl. Most of my opponents might as well be babies from my perspective. But even so, you're so strong it's almost pitiful. It's quite the honor to receive praise from a spirit. Genuinely delighted this compliment, she swept away the ice surrounding her with her blade. He must have fired close to 100 by now, but besides that first bombardment not a single one connected. Puck was pressuring her with the sheer quantity of his offense, but he was unable to land a decisive blow. At this rate, won't they run out of MP and lose? As he pictured a reversal in offense and defense, Subaru pointed out that a lengthy battle would prove disadvantageous. However, Rom shook his head. I don't know what this MP is, but there's no need to worry about a spirit user running out of mana in battle. No need to worry about them running out of mana. Unlike magic users, spirit users do not use the mana within them, but rather the mana around them. Unless the world itself runs dry, a spirit user will never run out of mana. They've got unlimited gasoline so they can rev their engines as much as they please. Quite a cheat. Rom cocked his head. Subaru's response was completely incomprehensible to him. He then continued with his head still tilted, but there's also the matter of how long the spirit can remain corporeal. Once the spirit is gone, the situation might change drastically. Crap, that's right, it's almost 5, isn't it? In the first world, Puck went to sleep not long after sunset. It hadn't been that long since the fight started, but surely throwing around that much magic must have been a significant drain on his mana reserves or whatever. Subaru's worries. This is bad. I'm getting a little drowsy. Actually, I was fighting in my sleep just now. Hey, Puck, get it together. I'm up, I'm awake, I'm definitely not sleeping. His voice is so low, isn't that conversation super concerning? Seemed to be right on the mark. Puck seemed to be nodding off already, and he could see that Not Sattler, who had Puck on her shoulder, was also starting to look anxious. Just when it was getting good. You're not even paying attention, how cold. That's the problem with being a popular guy. The girls just won't let you sleep. But staying up too late is terrible for your skin, you know. Bending her knees slightly, Elsa prepared to leap. Anticipating this, Puck shrewdly winked at her and spoke. How about we go ahead and put an end to this? You must be tired of seeing the same old performance, right? My leg. The instant she tried to advance, she tipped forward and had to put out her hands to stop her fall. Subaru stared in shock at this unbelievable screw-up, the reason for which was at her feet. Elsa's right foot was stuck to the frozen floor. The shattered ice had slowly piled up, and had now been used to trap her foot. It's not like I was just firing randomly, you know. So you've got me, is that right? Just think of it as the difference in experience. I believe this is worthy of some praise. Good night. As he threw his chest out, Puck's small body started to waver. He thrust his hands out in front him, a pose that suggested he was about to use a killer technique, and started gathering up the largest amount of magic thus far. Even Subaru could see it radiating from him. That magical power did not turn into ice, it was fired as pure destructive energy. The bluish-white light froze everything in its path, and dyed the loot house white in one fell swoop. The energy passed through Elsa and slammed into the entrance to the loot house, blowing away the poorly fitted door. The freezing waves left in the aftermath even reached outside. Once that magnificent light passed through, all that was left was frost. The goods, the furniture, the counter, everything was completely frozen. Naturally, anyone who took a direct hit would inevitably be turned into an ice sculpture. However, you're joking. I'm afraid not. Ah, splendid. I thought I was going to die. If she had taken it head on, perhaps. You're a girl, so I can't really praise that sort of thing. She had managed to avoid his last resort, but Puck wasn't any angrier than his words suggested. He truly was displeased by the act itself. Subaru could see blood dripping, and traces of steam coming off the frozen floor. The source of the blood was Elsa's right foot. She was standing barefoot just barely out of the path of Puck's attack, and a large amount of blood was pouring out of her right foot. It was only natural. After all, she had sliced off the sole of her foot. I was in such a hurry I almost chopped the whole thing off. That was a close one. But even that amount ought to be quite painful. Yes, I suppose you're correct. It is painful. Wonderful. I feel alive now. In response to Puck's concerned words, Elsa nodded with an ecstatic look, and then raised her bleeding foot and pressed it against a nearby lump of ice with no hesitation. It sounded like the air was cracking. Elsa moaned seductively, after which she used her cookery knife to smooth the ice's surface. With that, she managed to stop the bleeding. She had recklessly attached a part of the ice to her sole. It's a little hard to move, but it's enough. Her ice shoe produced a stiff sound as she tested it against the ground. She then smiled even more cheerfully. The fact that she was so addicted to battle that she didn't even mind mutilating herself left Subaru speechless, but it left an even bigger impression on Puck and Not Sattler, who were facing her. Puck, can you continue? Sorry, I'm really sleepy. I underestimated her a bit. I used up too much mana, gonna disappear. When Puck responded to her murmur, his voice had for the first time lost its composure. The cat on her shoulder, by her silver hair, started to emit a faint glow and looked as though he could disappear at any moment. He was out of time. I'll handle this somehow, so get some rest for now. Thank you. Should anything happen to you, I'll act in accordance with the contract. If it comes down to it, ring your odd to draw me out. As if urged on by Not Sattler's tender voice, Puck's body suddenly scattered and vanished. Every single person in that room lamented his retreat, but the one who was most disappointed was. Ah, he's gone. How terribly unfortunate. Elsa, who had been fighting for her life. She once again readied her blade, and moved toward Not Sattler with high-pitched footsteps. In response, Not Sattler started forming icicles one after another, but she couldn't form nearly as many as Puck had. But considering Elsa's mobility had dropped, their chances of winning were probably still 50-50. We can't just stand around staring anymore. Rom gripped his club and readied himself. Perhaps he thought the situation looked bad. When Subaru silently looked at him, he shrugged his shoulders. We don't know if she can win without assistance. So if we just sit around and watch, we're just missing our chance, you understand, right, Felt? Yeah, I get it. Even if we choose to run, we've got to do it right now. Felt hadn't spoken a word since Elsa first made her threat. She stood next to Rom, who seemed ready to fight, and then suddenly turned to Subaru. About earlier, you kinda saved me. Ah, just a little, mind you. Also, don't call me a kid. Despite how I look, I'm actually 15. Probably around the same as you. I'm 18 this year. I can drive and get married. You don't look it. You look like a kid. You've got to live a life that shows on your face more. On top of being a shut-in, he also lived a life without major ups and downs. But still, he felt that his current situation had way too many gigantic ups and downs. As the two resolved themselves and observed the state of the battle, all Subaru could do was watch. He was probably the weakest one there. And it wasn't merely fighting strength that he lacked. My legs are trembling, they won't move, I don't even have the resolve. It was more than a problem of being unqualified, he couldn't even get involved. Rom had his arms, Felt had her legs, and Sattler had her magic, they could use these to fight. However, Elsa's abnormality transcended all of these. Truly, she's getting overwhelmed. Rom's candid impression said it all. Not Sattler continued to fire an endless barrage of ice, but they were all smashed apart by Elsa's blade dance. Elsa sprang toward her, slashing as if she was dancing, and in response Not Sattler halted her attack to block with her ice shield and then froze the ground underneath her to slide away, barely avoiding the subsequent attacks. If she managed to gain some distance, she would once again go on the offensive with her ice barrage, but Elsa didn't seem like the kind of opponent who'd fall for the same trick twice. The next time she approached Sattler, Subaru would probably end up seeing a sight he never wanted to see again. Here goes. Probably imagining the same thing, Rom roared as he joined the battle. He raised his club and produced a powerful wind as he swung it. A bit of the hair on the back of Elsa's head got caught up in this as she ducked. Oh dear, it's rather boorish to cut in on a dance. If you wanna dance that bad, I'll make you dance the finest dance of all. Here, round and round. Rom thrust his spiked club at her, changing the scope of his attack from a line to a point. This sudden unconventional attack was aimed at Elsa's throat, and the end result froze Rom's throat. What the hell? Because you're so strong, I can even do this. Elsa was on her tiptoes, standing on the tip of his club. There was a divinely inspired sense of balance to this disparity in power, the first time such acrobatics were performed. Before this miraculous balance could collapse, Elsa swung her blade horizontally. It was aimed at Rom's temple. The force was such that a direct hit would blow the top of his head off. As if I'd let you. Clang, a small knife was thrown into her blade's path, hitting it. The impact from directly below slightly disturbed the blade's movement, and the side of the blade slammed into his head, still retaining its speed. There was the dull sound of steel striking bone, and Rom's body collapsed to the side. Bad girl. Ah. Elsa landed casually, and turned her gaze toward Felt. Felt's small knife had saved Rom from a fatal slash. She had probably been aiming at Elsa's arm, but it seemed her haste threw off her aim. But it could also be said that this just barely saved Rom's life. You have neither the resolve nor the strength to fight. That being the case, you should have just cowered in the corner, making yourself small. With high-pitched footsteps, Elsa's dark figure seemed to be gliding as she instantly appeared before Felt. Rom was unconscious from the blow to his head, and since Sattler had put some distance between them, she would not make it in time. Felt herself was paralyzed, like a frog in a snake's sights. Haydara. So the only one who could grab her small body and leap out of the way was the one who had been cowering in terror right next to her.